Have you ever seen a dog that can't bark? It's a strange thing. I've had people call me up and say, "Hey, my dog got neutered 2 days ago at the vet clinic and now he can't bark. He just makes this weird noise." And so I thought it would be good to talk about why a dog might not have a bark and what to do about it. There are a lot of different things that could potentially cause a dog not to bark. In today's episode, I'm going to go over some of the most common causes. If your dog has lost the ability to bark, it's important to take them to the vet so they can figure out what's going on and provide appropriate treatment. If it is something serious, then the sooner it's diagnosed, the better outcome your dog will have. The first thing that I always think of when a dog can't bark is if they have laryngeal paralysis. Laryngeal paralysis is a condition where one or both of the vocal folds don't close together during respiration. That leads to an inability to make that sound that we all recognize as a bark. You may hear a honk, or a snort, or a wheeze. In some cases, the dog may have stridor, which is kind of a high-pitched noise when they breathe in. This condition is usually caused by an issue with the nerve that goes to the larynx, which is called the recurrent laryngeal nerve. And typically it's unilateral, meaning that only one side is affected. So you might notice that your dog breathes noisily when they're calm and quiet, but when they get excited, they might start breathing through their mouth to compensate. In small dogs like Chihuahuas, Yorkshire Terriers, and Poodles, collapse of the larynx is a pretty common cause for dogs to not be able to bark. Dogs rely on their bark to communicate with other dogs. So if your small dog suddenly can't bark, it's likely they're feeling pretty scared and stressed out because they can't communicate with other dogs. The good news is that laryngeal paralysis tends to be pretty easy to fix surgically. The bad news is that if it's not fixed, the dog will probably aspirate and pneumonia pretty easily. So it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Another thing that could cause a dog not to be able to bark is if they have some sort of trauma to their throat or their neck. Like maybe they were in a fight with another animal, and now they can't bark. This is a bit less common, but it can happen. If a dog has trauma to their throat, it could cause inflammation that leads to an inability to bark. If your dog has trauma to the neck or the throat, it's definitely a good idea to have them checked out by a vet. Another thing that can lead to an inability to bark is chronic laryngitis. If a dog has chronic laryngitis, it can make their vocal folds swollen and inflamed, and it can lead to an inability to bark. If your dog has chronic laryngitis, it might be a good idea to have them checked out by a vet because there could be another underlying cause, like perhaps exposure to a toxin, or maybe they have heart disease, or they have something else going on that's causing their chronic laryngitis. Alright, so those are some of the more common medical causes for a dog to lose their bark. There are also some behavioral reasons why a dog might stop barking. First and foremost, if a dog has been abused for barking, they may stop barking because they're trying to avoid that negative interaction. If a dog is anxious or fearful, they may stop barking because, again, they're trying to avoid something negative happening. And sometimes if a dog is just very, very old, they may stop barking because it hurts their throat or their voice box to bark. So what do you do if your dog suddenly stops barking? Well, first of all, you want to rule out any medical causes by taking them into the vet. If there's nothing physically wrong with their throat or their voice box, then you need to try to figure out if there's something stressful going on in their life that might be causing them to be anxious or fearful. If you can identify something stressful going on in their life, then work on reducing that stress. If they're anxious or fearful for some reason, then it might be helpful to work with a behaviorist to come up with a plan to reduce their anxiety or fear. If you know that your dog has a certain level of anxiety or fear, then you want to be careful not to inadvertently reward that behavior by giving them attention when they're anxious or fearful. So if you come home and your dog is pacing and whining, and you give them the attention that they're looking for by petting them and talking to them, then you've rewarded that behavior and you've made it more likely that they'll pace and whine the next time you leave. Sometimes it's hard to know what to do in these situations because you feel bad for your dog, but you really want to try to be strong and just ignore the behavior and hope that it goes away. And sometimes that does work. But sometimes you really do need to work with a professional to come up with a plan that works for you and your dog. Another thing you can do to help your dog stop being anxious or fearful is to give them something that will make them feel safe and secure. This could be a thunder shirt or another type of wrap that applies gentle pressure. It could be a pheromone product like Adaptil or something as simple as a towel that smells like you. Whatever you use, make sure it's something that your dog finds comforting. Another thing you can do is to make sure your dog gets plenty of exercise. A tired dog is less likely to be anxious or fearful, so make sure your dog is getting at least 1 hour of exercise a day. If your dog is destructive when you're gone, it could be a sign that they're bored or have pent-up energy. So again, exercise can be a great outlet for that energy. You can also try giving your dog something to keep them occupied while you're gone, like a Kong or a puzzle toy filled with treats. You can also try leaving the radio or TV on for your dog when you're gone. Some dogs find this comforting, and it can help drown out any noises that might be triggering their anxiety or fear. And finally, you can try medication to help reduce your dog's anxiety or fear. This should only be done under the guidance of a veterinarian. There are a few medications that are commonly used to help reduce anxiety or fear in dogs. One is called fluoxetine, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, or SSRI. Another is clomipramine, which is a tricyclic antidepressant. And lastly, there's something called gabapentin, which is a nerve pain medication that's also sometimes used to help reduce anxiety or fear. So those are some things that you can do if your dog suddenly stops barking. It's important to remember that every dog is an individual, and what works for one dog may not work for another. So you may need to try a combination of things to figure out what helps your dog the most. I hope this video was helpful and informative. Please let us know if you have any questions and we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching and see you next time.